Lenny.
Hi, Nancy.
Welcome to episode 132 of the Front Porch Book Club.
The Front Porch Book Club is a podcast that meets twice a month.
We like to dig deep into the relationship between characters and the worlds they live in.
Grab your book and iced tea and join us on the front porch.
Well, Lenny, today we interview Molly Fader about her latest book, Lady X, which will be available on July 14th.
Fresh off the press, as they say.
Yeah.
I think listeners will enjoy our interview with Molly. She's a very accomplished writer. She's the author of 4 novels, including the MCAVOY sisters' Book of Secrets, which is about 2 sisters from small Pennsylvania hometown.
Hey, that sounds familiar.
It does. Writing under the pseudonym of Molly O'Keefe. Molly Fader is the USA Today Bestselling author of over 50 contemporary romances. That's a lot of stories.
Yeah.
She lives in Toronto, Ontario, with her husband, 2 kids, and a rescue dog.
And Molly is a podcaster. Her podcast is called Day Drinking with Authors. She interviews authors and others in the publishing industry about recent releases, inspirations, and what's happening next in publishing. And they do it all while having a cocktail or 3, she says.
Okay, let's get to our interview with Molly.
Well, welcome, Molly, to our front porch.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Well, Molly, my first question is, you have a podcast and you serve cocktails. Do you not at your podcast? Did you bring some for us?
Sure did. Sure did, ladies.
Okay.
What's a front porch without a cocktail?
Yeah.
I started a podcast in the middle of the pandemic when authors couldn't go anywhere to promote. And the number of authors who were like so eager I guess because nothing really felt real. So they would come on and we would have these themed drinks and we would drink. We would really drink. But I can't do that anymore. My menopause has said no more front porch drinks for you. But
Your podcast is called Day Drinking.
Day Drinking with Authors, yeah.
Day Drinking with Authors. And I loved your most recent episode with Amy Clark from the Book Gang podcast. And it was great books to read this summer.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Amy.
No.
She does a great summer. I mean, I know that a lot of podcasts do and a lot of book lovers do. And she is a reviewer and a podcaster whose tastes really suit mine. You know, when you find someone that like really recommends books you haven't heard of, but everyone you pick up, you're like, oh, that's a winner. She just really digs deep. So yeah, thanks for shouting that out because I love her and I love her summer reading program. That's not what it's called, but
And her podcast is called the Book Gang podcast.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, there are some good tips for our listeners. Molly's podcast, Day Drinking with Authors, and Amy's podcast, Book Gang.
How long have you guys been working on your podcast? How long have you been doing this?
COVID, about a year after it started. It took us a while to get it going, like figure out what was our format and all those things. But we did our first drop about a year after.
Yeah, it was like March of 21, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, COVID was a weird and difficult time and tragic for a lot of people. But for those of us who were readers, it was really rich.
Yeah.
It was, if there's a silver lining to find there, I really fell back in love with reading in a big way.
Oh,
The days were like, what are we doing?
yeah. For those of us who had children who were away who came home, that was also a rich, wonderful time that I felt very guilty about enjoying as much as I did when other people were really undergoing horrific circumstances. But I had my little college student home and
Yeah, my son was a proper teenager and my daughter was a little bit younger. And those are the years when you start kind of losing them to their friends. Right. And they're still dealing with the ramifications of losing those important social years. Yeah. But it was really nice to have them with you. Like it delayed that teenagerness a little bit. Like my son was a little bit still my little boy.
Aww.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, you said that Amy's tastes are a lot like yours. What do your reading tastes run like?
Well, I'm everywhere. Aren't we all?
Yes.
I mean, everywhere. again, thank you, COVID, I really, really, really got into audiobooks because I would just walk and walk and walk. So I always have 3 books on the go, a paperback, an audiobook, and then something on my e-reader. And in fact, I've got my paperback right here.
Oh, let's
What
see
you're
what you're
reading.
reading.
City of the Muse,
Oh.
Kate Hilton, a Canadian author. This is a dual timeline, an Egyptologist who's studying papyrus in a dig. The historical information feels so real that I'm like, is this a real dig? Is this like a real place? No, she made it all up.
Wow.
In the way of those Egypt digs, there's a curse and someone is murdered. And then in the present timeline, you know, the papyrus is found. Anyway, so it's very, if you like historical mysteries that really run intelligent and really fascinating detail, like if you really want to get into the detail of what it was like to dig in Egypt, particularly as a woman, fascinating. Super, super good.
That
Oh, I
sounds
love that.
interesting.
I have one other question about your podcast related to Lady X, your book that we're highlighting this month.
We're here to talk about we're talking about everything else.
Julia, the sister, starts a podcast near the end of the book. And Lenny and I were laughing. She's hired a producer, an engineer, and a research assistant. Do you have a producer, an engineer, and a research assistant for your podcast?
Oh, no, I wish I did. I mean, we all listen to it when you. No, and I really wish I did. I really wish I did. The one thing that I did is I reached out to a friend who is a singer-songwriter, incredibly talented, and she wrote a theme song for me.
Oh, that's your theme
So that was like the
song.
one nod I had. And then I don't do it quite as often, but every once in a while I'll put out an episode. And I do have a friend who's a little bit better at audio editing than I am. I mean, I just used to record and put it up. And if people flubbed, if the phone rang, if the dogs barked, it was just like warts and all.
Yeah.
It was so, yes. How about you guys? Research assistant?
No.
Nancy. Editor, Nancy. Tech support, Nancy.
Linda, you're just here for a good time, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah. This should just be fun.
You know, it is fun. It really is fun.
Yeah.
Well, Molly, you have written a lot of books and have had wonderful success as an author. How did you get started as a writer?
Well, that's a good question. So when you're a kid and you read the first book where a main character is an author, and you're like, oh, that's a job. And so for me, it was Emily of New Moon, L.M. Montgomery, the lesser known
Oh,
Anne of Green Gables. I'm an Emily of New Moon girl.
yeah.
So that from then on, and I always wrote stories. I went to university and I studied journalism. I thought I would be a speechwriter. I had all these more sensible dreams than being a fiction writer. I had in high school, a friend was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh, so
And
sorry.
it was one of those, like, my whole friend group, I'm from a very small town, the whole city was mourning, the whole town was mourning. And I found incredible solace in romance novels because there was a happily ever after and there was closure, and, you could read them in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Particularly the Harlequins that my friend's mom used to give me. So that was always kind of in the back of my head. It would be kind of interesting and fun to write those. And then in college, I had another situation where another friend died, and I dove back into romance novels. And I was like, I respect what these books are doing for me so much that I would like to be a part of this. And so I thought, I'm going to write a romance novel. And I got my degree and I worked for some magazines, but I was always working on a book. I met a Canadian, I'm from the States, was in university in the States. This Canadian guy came down to finish his degree. He moved back to Canada, and I was like, well, I'm moving to Canada. We're going to just see how this works. And I couldn't work. So I took a class, and the teacher was an editor at Harlequin Publishing.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah, she just really, really showed me the ropes, helped me out a great deal. She continues to be a big help in my life. So yeah, so I ended up from there selling a book to Harlequin. And then, I got married and I had kids, and I was home with the kids, and it was just one of those things that was all mine. It was like an escape from the constantly worrying about sleep schedules.
Right.
introducing new food and like social, like all the things of early motherhood. And then from there it just kind of grew. So then I wrote for Harlequin for many years, and then I wrote more romance novels for Bantam. And then I published my own romance novels when that became a big deal. You're really getting the long story
This
here.
is great.
Very interesting.
Sex and romance was always a really fascinating way to tell women's stories. Like, it was just interesting.
Yeah.
And I think as we've all been watching, really powerful men get away with very, very terrible crimes, my interest in sex and romance has shifted towards rage and revenge.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us right into the book.
I think they're big emotions. They're transformative emotions. They can change your life. They can change your perception of who you are. So they seem similar to me in a lot of ways, although maybe readers might not feel that way.
So you published a lot of your romance novels under a pseudonym. These novels that are, I would say, more just women's fiction, not romance novels, are under your own name. Was that a purposeful choice so as not to confuse readers? Did you have to get a new agent? What did that look like to make that transition as a writer?
Yeah, I signed in with Harlequin in the days when they would be like, oh, you need a pen name. Give us a list of pen names. And I gave them a list of pen names. And they're like, no, we're going to call you Molly O'Keefe.
Okay.
I mean, it worked. It worked. And so I was able to take that name. But these books are so radically different from the romances. There's plenty of crossover. Romance readers are the most voracious readers I know. And a lot of them have followed me into this new line. I think their rage is a match.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Molly O'Keefe. And then if the books were a bit more explicit, I used the pen name M. O'Keefe. But when it was time to sort of leave that behind, I just decided to go with my name.
And you had to get a new agent, new publishers?
Well, that is a very interesting question with, again, another long answer. This front porch is so truth serum-y.
We're just hanging out drinking.
So I had the same agent, an amazing agent. I owe my career to her. And I sent her the idea for Lady X, and she came back to me and she said, I don't love this. And I was like, wow, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so she said, I think you should take a week and think about whether it's time for you to move on. And I was like, she's been in my life for almost 25 years. So I took a week and I called her back and I said, yeah, I think it's time to move on. And I burst into tears.
Yes.
Burst into tears. I told her I loved her, which is like the least professional agent relationship. So then I found myself in this very weird position of like looking for a new agent. But I really I just really believed in this book. It really felt exciting to me. It felt like I couldn't wait to write it. I couldn't wait to get to the end of the book. It felt like if I loved this much, then I could find someone who would love it this much. And then I did.
Wow.
My goodness.
I know. Dramatic, right?
It's very
Dramatic.
good. It's dramatic. I don't understand how she just didn't, was it just not like her brand or something, or?
I don't know if she didn't know the kind of editors maybe to send it to. I didn't know if she worried that it was too angry. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I don't know if she was just saying, Molly, you need a bigger pool of editors to pull from than I've got. She was a romance agent with some authors who have done incredibly well. She did so much for me, and I'm grateful that she let me go with such grace too. Talk about handling a breakup. I mean, I don't even know.
Yes. Wow.
Let's get into Lady X.
Let's do it.
What was your inspiration?
For every book, and it usually starts kind of a year before I start writing, is I just kind of walk around with these like vibes. And so the vibes that I was having, one was I was so angry, watching the news, watching men get away with what they were getting away with, watching them get rewarded, never being called into account. So I had this anger. And the second thing that happened, my daughter was in middle school, and in the way of middle school girls since the beginning of time, she and her friends were being harassed by this kid. And, we said all the things, go to the teacher, tell him to stop, all this stuff. And the kid wouldn't stop. He was really quite persistent. And then I said what my mom said and what her mom probably said, which was, ignore him. And my daughter was like, no, I will not.
Oh, good
No,
for
I will
her.
not.
Good
Wow.
for
I know.
her. Wow.
She and her friends went all the way to the top and got this kid in the trouble he needed to be in, which probably got him the help he needed to be in. And I had to reckon with my role in aiding and abetting what could have been a future abuser, right?
Wow.
You know, like these kids start somewhere. These
Yep.
men start somewhere. And my daughter and her friends just were like, this will not stand. And I couldn't have been more proud, and I couldn't have been more embarrassed by my reaction, and just realizing how I was just one step up from, oh, he probably is doing it because he likes you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just I was zero help, and in fact, hindering of the situation. So I had those two things. And then when I'm walking around with those things, I need like the lightning strike that's going to suddenly create a book in my head. And during the pandemic, Taylor Swift released the album Midnights, and in it is a song called Vigilante Shit. So I heard
I
that
did
song.
not know
I
that.
was like, there we go. Vigilante, you know, and it
Nice.
just kind of unspooled from there. Like once the women became vigilantes in my mind, it was just looking for a time and place.
Well, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate your transparency in sharing that story and the parallels of your own experience with the experience of these ladies.
Yeah.
It makes me love the book even more, hearing those stories.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it makes me
Thanks. I mean-
proud that your daughter, she stood up for herself. How beautiful is that? And her friends.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Maybe we're making progress.
I look at what she and her friends are doing and the way that they set up boundaries, the way that they won't be used to make uncomfortable situations comfortable. Like when men make it uncomfortable, she is not going to make it comfortable. I mean, I'm a nice Midwestern girl, man. That was my whole upbringing.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm very proud of her and proud of her friends in that generation.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Speaking of growing up, Lenny and I grew up around Pennsylvania. So I have to ask, in Lady X, Margot and Julia grew up in Pennsylvania. And in the McAvoy sisters, Book of Secrets, another of your books, the sisters are from a small Pennsylvania hometown. What's your connection to Pennsylvania? And why are you doing all these books about sisters?
Yeah, I know. I don't even have a sister.
Don't
Isn't it
you?
weird?
Oh.
I know. I want a sister very badly.
Yeah.
My dad grew up in Pennsylvania and my grandparents lived in Pennsylvania. They've both passed, and my uncle and his family are still in Pennsylvania. So it was in the way of places where your grandparents are from. Like it's full of mythology and lore,
Yes.
and, you know, the house where everybody grew up and the things you always do when you go to Pittsburgh. It is a place for great storytelling, I think,
Mm-hmm.
in my family.
Mhm.
So it feels right to set books there.
And then how about gritty New York? Lenny and I also experienced New York in the late 1970s. You captured the grit beautifully.
You guys were in New York City in the 1970s?
We visited.
Just a visit. We didn't live there. Yeah.
Back when they were telling you not to visit, that it was so dangerous.
We went to a crazy high school where they would have us catch a bus at like 4 or 5 in the morning. We'd drive into the city. They'd drop us off in Times Square at like 8 in the morning and say, okay, kids, be back at midnight. And then they would bus us.
This was public school.
Could you imagine
No.
that happening today? I mean, what?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And same
That is incredible.
Same thing with like Washington, D.C. too. They would just
No chaperones?
No.
Who needs them?
no. No.
We kind of raised ourselves when we grew up.
So
Not
yeah,
a lot of oversight.
we are very familiar with the grittiness of New York.
The subway experience. Yeah.
Navigate it on your own.
Yeah, figure it out. Between all the peep shows and
Yeah, and to drop you in Times Square in 1970. Wow.
So how about you? Did you wander around Times Square as a teenager?
So my dad's sister, my aunt, she was an artist in New York City. She lived in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Oh.
And again, when I sort of had the idea for this vigilante story, it just so happened that my husband and I watched a documentary about 1977 in New York City. And it was just such a powder keg. It was
Yes.
Son of Sam. It was the blackout. It was the funding. The city was bankrupt.
Yeah.
Police were fighting with City Hall. The trash wasn't being picked up. Like, it was heat waves. It was just quite a summer. And I kind of tweaked on it, and I was like, oh, and I knew that I needed a reason why nobody had ever really heard of Lady X. And because Son of Sam was such a big
Yes.
story, the press was so involved, and every newspaper headline was Son of Sam. So it was a good excuse for it to kind of get squashed, why Lady X wouldn't make a dent past a one-day kind of news cycle. And then, so I thought, oh gosh, can I even do this? I don't know. And then again, it was the pandemic, and I ran into these walking tours that were still doing walking tours, but it was just a guy and his phone in the empty city telling stories. And it was practically one-on-one. So I was able to ask a lot of questions. And then there was another one where a guy was doing it on his computer, and he was showing all of this old footage, Greenwich Village in the 70s. I couldn't go and do all the research I wanted to do, but I felt like I really got to get in there in a very interesting way of research. So yeah, so that's how 77 New York City happened.
Oh yeah, I think you painted it beautifully.
Yeah.
Oh,
Took it-
thank you.
took
That
me
means
right
a lot.
there.
I'm very worried there, as someone who
No, that,
very
that
worried.
was it.
You got it. You got it.
Good.
That's my memory. Right down to the fire escapes falling apart and the rats in the subway
Yep.
and the smells. Ooh. Yee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Nancy and I really like the story of the girls and their experiences in New York City. Coming up against these men who had power over them, they were kind of powerless. At first, it's difficult for some of the women to really stand up for themselves. And this is something that they kind of learned. And I think Faye was an important part of the story, and that she understood what she was going to put up with and what she wasn't. And she helped them along that way. And they found a voice and they found courage. Why did you want to explore this dynamic of men and women, and specifically the relationship with these girls and that they helped each other?
Yeah, the friends you made when you were in your early 20s, it's a lot like falling in love. Like, it rewires your brain. Such a powerful, powerful relationship, particularly when it's kind of under pressure like these girls are living with. And I knew Faye was a lit match. Faye was ready to go.
She
like, whatever.
was, yep.
Yeah. Ginger was never going to stand up for herself.
Mm-mm.
That was myself a little bit. So the person that she was going to stand up for was her friend. So the thing that was going to push her into a life of vigilantism was her love of her friend and wanting to do that for her. So I just really love that time in my life and in young women's lives. Like, it just is such an important relationship. And yeah, and I knew that, like, I couldn't have 3 lit matches. I couldn't have 3 girls who were never going to stand up. I needed to sort of have the spectrum of experience and the spectrum of anger and the spectrum of willingness to break the bonds of expectation in places that men want women to stay.
It does remind me of your daughter and her friends, how
Mhm.
banding together for each other, you find a courage that maybe you couldn't find alone.
Yeah, agreed.
But they're finding it in middle school, which is amazing to me.
Well, they're growing up with these news cycles, right? They're growing up with these very public stories. They're not protected, I feel like, in a bit of the way that I was
Mhm.
growing up, right? The 8th grader who's harassing me feels like the 8th grader that's harassing me is going to stop, and I'll move on to the next thing. But my daughter is seeing that the 8th grader who's harassing her is the first in a line of men who are ready to harass. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But it also feels like that kind of harassment right now is okay in a lot of circles, that women do need to be put in their place. It also feels like there is a stronger, more vocal pushback in the public sphere than maybe it was just unsaid when we were growing up.
Yeah, the pendulum is swinging so hard and faster than it ever has.
Mhm.
So I feel like we're kind of in this constant backlash of, for every step forward and fight women make, there's a quick repercussion. We're going to lose Roe v. Wade, this trad wife thing that's all over the internet. It's going to go back immediately. So it just feels like a bit of whiplash right now,
Mhm.
and steady course through this insanity.
Yeah, exactly. The beautiful thing about this novel, one of the beautiful things about this novel, is that we see these young girls in this very formative part of their lives, but then we get the glimpse of them and how they age into the people they were meant to become. For me, that was so moving. I cried at the end of this book. And I read a lot of books. I don't cry at all the books that I read. This one I did, just watching how that determination that they found in themselves carried through their lives. How did you approach writing these characters and their lifespan in this way?
The ending was actually one of the things that I had to rewrite a bunch of times. And my editor kind of kept giving me the same notes. And I kept like misreading the note, right? Like she's like, Molly, we need a big emotional, like you've put us through it. Give us a big, not necessarily happy ever after, but give us that emotional moment. And I just kind of kept, like, I wrote a scene where Sky, the daughter who's being harassed at her school, she goes off to university and she kind of Lady X is a professor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, I know it's a great idea, but it gave you no emotional wrap up. Like
Yeah,
it just
okay.
kind of kept being angry.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to kind of get to the place where I was like, oh, I get it. I get it. These women, they haven't seen each other because of the way that friendships are made in your 20s. They've been staying with each other. They need to be together again in some capacity. So it took me a while to get there, but then once I did, I was delighted.
I guess the word that comes to mind is catharsis.
Yeah. Thank you. It means a lot. I mean, writers are terrible creatures who love it when you say it made me cry.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the nicest compliment you could give me.
Well, we really liked the bond that the young girls had with each other, but we also appreciated the bonds of the contemporary people, the mother-daughter bond, the bond between the sisters, because Nancy and I are sisters.
Are you?
We are.
We are. I know we don't look alike, but we are sisters.
The getting bused to New York City in high school, I thought you were childhood friends, but you're sisters. This is great.
Yeah.
This is great. Okay, good. Keep going.
So we appreciated all of the female bonds, but we also talked that there were times they weren't supportive of each other.
I think a lot about Julia and Margot in the present and how Margot loves her sister.
Of course, yeah.
And goes to her sister when she needs help,
Yep.
but also thinks perhaps a bit that she's a bit better than her sister, right? And Julia thinks she's a bit better than her sister, in the way of sisters. I mean, again, not that I have a sister, but Julia lives an incredibly authentic life. And she's also someone who's paid the price for living that life, right? Her job is downsized. She's living in her parents' old house. She's got a crummy Jeep, right? Like she has decided what is important to her, and staying true to herself is what is important to her. Margot, on the other hand, has in a lot of ways lost sight of herself.
Right.
And I think that is why it takes her so long to get angry, because she's completely lost touch with the reality of who she is. She's like spent so long creating this facade. So Julia and Margot being together, Margot needs Julia to push her and to say, when are you going to get angry?
Mm-hmm.
And Julia needs Margot to not burn the world down every place she
Right.
goes,
Right.
And I think that dynamic can cause a lot of friction.
Well, it does with Faye, the same kind of thing. Faye, like you said, is a lit match.
Yeah. And I think they're trying to figure out who they are and who they are in this dynamic. Faye does not understand why anybody would allow themselves to be hurt and pushed around like this. She's had enough. Like, she's lived it.
Yeah.
And Ginger's lived a fairly privileged life and doesn't think that what she's had to experience is that bad without realizing exactly how bad it is. Yeah, they've got a lot of things to work through.
I thought one of the most heartbreaking betrayals of that bond was when Ginger sends Faye up to Shane's office for her to be interviewed for a job at the Orbit Club, because Ginger knows what Faye is going to face in trying to get that job. But because she refuses to recognize the harm that's done to her, she is unable to recognize the harm she's putting her friend under. Why was that a scene that you wanted to include?
I mean, I felt like that experience is so true to my experience and the experiences of friends, right? Someone needs a job for the summer. You're like, oh, you can work at my restaurant. The manager's kind of handsy.
Yeah.
That is an experience I have had more time. And I think it's a fairly universal one, right?
Right.
And I liked that she was starting to realize how wrong it was and that she was perpetrating this violence too, that she was a part of this system that was hurting women.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was interesting to write and hard to write because of my feelings about what I did to my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot there about how women are responsible for keeping other women down.
And then Jasmine's friend who comes flying out of that office like, what?
Yeah. Good morning, girl. Yeah. Yeah.
Which was another reaction or response to that, which I loved. Like, yeah, that's an appropriate response. You expect me to do what to work in this place that maybe it's renowned, but no job is worth that.
Yeah, that's not worth it. Yeah. And I remember feeling jealous of the girls that could do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was so brave. It felt so brave, seemed so brave. It was brave.
Yeah.
Recognizing what we're doing is a hard job. Those were fun scenes to write. I really looked at my own problems, my own faults.
It's easy to write all rage and all righteous anger. It's harder to look at our own flaws.
Yeah. Good people doing the wrong thing.
Exactly. So what's it been like promoting this book? And have you been enjoying exploring women's rage?
Well, you know something? Yes. I am really touched by the amount of people who want to talk about this. I'm really amazed and impressed and delighted and humbled by the depth of thought that people, every one of these interviews, I'm just so blown away by how much it resonates and how much the questions that people ask. And, just now your insight about, those scenes where someone's reconciling with their part in it. I'm so amazed and humbled and blown away. It's been a delight. I can't believe it.
It's a book with many layers. It's very deep in character development. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people that you're talking to are digging into different aspects of this book, because you really are dealing with a lot of issues deeply and well.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you.
I find it hopeful. And I really like the very last chapter, because I think your book had to take over a generation of ladies, their young 20s towards their old age, for us to see how things have changed and how women's rights have changed over the course of that time. Although it's frustrating to see kind of a resurgence of some of these same issues, heartbreaking when you read about them now.
How hard women have fought and are fighting.
It's still fighting the same
things,
battles.
the same things.
It takes me back to the Women's March, which Nancy and I both participated in Washington. And I was walking at one point beside women who were in walkers. And they said, I can't believe that after all these years, I had to come down to Washington and fight the same battle.
Yeah.
It really struck me.
Yeah.
But I like the ending of your book and the arc of your characters, because now that I understand people do an arc, and the people now that they've come so far and they had a voice and they're doing well and they're carrying on with understanding how to have a voice and how to be heard and how to live their
Stand up
lives
for
more
each other. And
authentically. Yeah.
I mean, it's all we can do. It's all we can really do. I mean, not everybody can be Faye and not everybody can be Sky and not, like we just have to be able to do what we can do and try our best to support each other in everybody's rage.
Yeah.
Everybody else's rage will take them. We've got to support them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do like that each of these characters has different assets and skills that they learn how to harness to help other women. So it might not seem like Margot has much to offer because she's taken so long to get to a place where she'll even recognize the things that have been done to her. But by the end of the book, she's finding ways to support other women in their journey. Julia, she's always figured that out, but she's figuring out new ways of connecting people. I think that was beautiful. And we haven't talked about Todd at all, but I did love Todd. And I thought he was a fabulous character. And talk about an ally. He was so wonderful.
Yeah.
My homecoming date, my prom date was a guy named Andy. And Andy married Todd Ackerman. And Todd Ackerman has been in so many of my books.
What? I love this.
I know. And he takes it on. They're just delightful, special people. And so I always name an incredible ally in the book or somebody who kind of plays a role. I always name them Todd.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to stop now because it's gotten a bit much, but it's been a fun joke for my high school prom date and his husband and me.
Did John read this book yet?
Todd has read it. Todd is my greatest salesman by all. Yes,
does he like his part?
Oh, he does.
Oh, good
he
for Todd.
Is thrilled. He's thrilled. Yes. Yep.
I love that.
I love Todd from the moment he stepped into the page. I was like, oh, yes, I want to be friends with Todd for sure. Yeah. I hope he's not just going to waltz in and then disappear. But the way Todd aged when we meet him later in life, you wrote him with such warmth. I just love Todd. Yeah, I love Todd.
Yeah, I liked that he and Faye stayed friends, and they share this space and these lives, and
they're still protecting each other.
Yeah,
loving each other. Yeah, beautiful. So I know people will want to know, what are you working on next?
Well, I am working on a juicy little number about Nashville in the 1980s.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So all-female country music band and how they are formed in a time when they weren't playing women back to back on country music stations and two women couldn't be put on tour on the same ticket. So it's in the same vein. It's a real women banding together, literally in this case. But in the days of the country music sequined golden era.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Is the format going to be chronological storytelling, or will there be jumping back and forth in time like this book features?
No dual timeline. There is so much story that's happening with these women right now. They are really fun. It's kind of like Faye and Rachel and Ginger. I just want to hang out with them. I just want to spend time with them. So it'll just be the 80s.
Oh, well, the 80s were a cool decade. That'll be interesting. What's the best way for our listeners to stay in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram, Molly Fader Author. I have a website and a newsletter. I'd love it if you sign up. I rarely send newsletters, but they're only full of important information. Yeah, so come find me on Instagram or sign up for my newsletter through my website, mollyfader.com.
Great. And I'll add those links to our show notes so that listeners can find them.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on our front porch.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely conversation.
Really, really enjoyed it. Thanks, Molly.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
So, Nancy, a serious subject matter, really.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the book was hard for me to read at times, I guess, now that I really think about it and talking with the author. I loved her transparency and her own struggle with the subject matter. It's made me think of my own space and time over the decades with this particular issue, of which I have ungracefully trudged through before with faults and my own personal struggles. So I appreciated just her transparency and sharing.
And do you think the book was difficult for you to read in places because you were watching women struggle with this? You were watching women fumble their relationships with each other. You're watching women not stand up for themselves. What was difficult about?
Yeah, all of that.
Okay.
And I didn't realize, having read through it, it was because of my own issues with this. Like, I knew I was, oh, why is she? Oh, no. Oh, no, don't go that far, Faye.
Yeah.
My own emotional reactions through reading the story was because I was identifying or not identifying and having a personal reaction because of my own personal issues with the subject matter. So that was enlightening to me, and I'll take some time to think about that. What were your thoughts on the interview, Nance?
Oh, I love the interview. I loved talking with Molly. One of the things that I find really fascinating about her journey as a writer is moving from writing 50 contemporary romances to now a book that is almost anti-romantic. I mean, Ginger does find a loving relationship. Her friend Bonnie does. I mean, all the characters find loving relationships, I guess, in the end, but not in a romance novel sort of way at all. So I thought that transition from writing romance to then shifting into, let's take a deeper look into the lives of women and the challenges they face, warts and all.
Yeah, this is warts. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fascinating that she made that transition and really was brave enough to do it, because as she was saying, her agent was like, boy, I don't know if you should make this shift. I don't know if this book is the right book. And she had a long-term relationship with that agent. So that took courage to say, no, this is the direction creatively I want to go. These are the issues I want to explore. And having the confidence in herself and the confidence that there would be readers, agents, and publishers out there ready to greet her and support her in that journey.
And I applaud her. I think when we started this podcast, I would say I was definitely that kind of reader. Fluff and stuff, easy beach reads, nothing too complicated. Let's have a little sweet Hallmark moment. But the books that we're reading now are so much more deep, so much more thought-provoking, so much more real, that I have really enjoyed reading them. And I'm glad there's women out there that are willing to write them.
Yeah, and to go into those dark corners.
I definitely recommend this book to our readers. I thought it was interesting, thought-provoking. You know, there's people that do have book clubs, Nancy. They meet. You join these groups.
Yeah, I have an in real life book club, and now I've joined 2 more discussion groups.
Yeah, so you do that. I would recommend this book. Be a part of your local book club and get together with other people to really discuss it. I hope people have enjoyed our discussion on it, and with Molly as well. Definitely worth a read.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this book. I mean, there are themes that we didn't even get
we
close
didn't even
to
touch
talking
on
about. One of my discussion groups recently read a book, and we felt like the author covered so many themes, but a lot of them very superficially. So that's the opposite of this book. She covers a lot of themes. People's lives are complicated. She dives into the complication, but she covers them well. You get the emotional impact of them. You understand the complexities of them. So yeah, if you want a book that will make you think, make you laugh, make you cry, this is a good one, I think. And a good book to discuss with women.
Yeah. Okay. Well, stop by the front porch next time when we will review Returns and Exchanges, written by Kayla Ray Whitaker.
Yes, I'm about halfway through the book. Really fun, interesting book. This is a book all about family and a family business. I'm looking forward to talking with you about it. And everyone, thanks for listening. Our website is frontporchbookclub.com.
Our episodes come out twice a month on the first and third Wednesday of every month.
See you next time, Lenny.
See you, Nance.